everybody. This is one of the talks I give every month. The talks are based in a lot of Eastern philosophies, somewhat Buddhist, somewhat other things, but I try and boil them down into how do we use them in our daily life to live a more meaningful life and to be more mindful of what we're here for and what we're doing. So I just came off of a 5-day silent retreat up in the mountains. So if I can talk for an hour, I'll be shocked. But we're going to give it a try tonight. I'm feeling quite quiet and slow, so we'll just see where this wanders and meanders. The theme of the retreat that I was on, this is an annual retreat for the order, the Buddhist order that I belong to. And the theme of the retreat was impermanence and how to practice in our turbulent times. How do we bring our practice to help us live through all of the seemingly craziness of the world going on, and how do we make sense of all that? And how do we use our practice to stay centered and focused in our daily lives so that we don't get overwhelmed by all of the input that we have and all the different directions that we seem to be going in. And one of the things that came up to me while we were there was, in Buddhism, we talk a lot about different, I hesitate to call them concepts because they're not really concepts. They're different ways to look at what reality is, I guess is the best way to put it. So impermanence is one of them. They're what they call the 3 pillars of Zen. It's impermanence, the sense of no self, and nirvana, which means extinction, basically. So impermanence is the first pillar, and what impermanence says is that everything changes. Nothing stays the same. And an interesting way to look at this is, if we talk about the idea of time, time sort of proves the nature of impermanence. Because if we look at time, time is a made-up concept, at least on one level. And all time really is change. Everything is changing at a different rate. You know, we're changing, our cells are dying, we're getting new cells, trees are growing and their cells are slowly dying. Everything is changing, and we notice that, and we call it time. So we notice that there's a difference between looking at one moment and looking at another, and we get a sense that things are, we interpret it as time has gone by, that things are no longer the way they were a minute ago, an hour ago, a day ago. But in reality, there is no such thing as time itself. Time is a manufactured metronome, if you will, that tries to make sense of everything changing at different rates. So, you know, the sun comes up and the sun goes down. It doesn't really. We're actually on a planet that's spinning through space, and as it rotates, we see the sun and we don't. And yet we use that as a touchstone to refer to day and night, the passage of time. And because the planet rotates at a certain speed, and we can identify that speed and give it that designation of 24 hours, we think of it as time. Time is passing. But it really isn't. What's really happening is things are changing. And so if we start to notice that, and we start to apply that to everything that we normally apply time to, we start to realize that nothing stays the same. Everything is impermanent, meaning that it doesn't stay in one state, even for a millisecond. So it's an interesting way to look at things, because then you can start identifying things as, if you look at something that doesn't last very long, I mean, pick anything you want, a reflection off a window or a leaf falling through the air, you know, its change of position, its change of visualization occurs very quickly. if we look at a metal chair and we realize that metal may take 40 years to rust away to nothing, but it is changing as we look at it, just so slowly that it's not noticeable to us at any given moment. So everything is changing at different rates. And when you start to look out at the world, you realize, when you see that, it's like you can almost get a sense of it and see how everything is changing right before our very eyes. And it gives us this sense that everything is in movement in one way or another. If it's even on an atomic level, if metal is rusting, of course, that's happening very, very slowly. Rocks disintegrating. I mean, it takes eons for a mountain to be worn down, but it's still changing every second of every day. Just not very much, not enough to notice. When we look at the world and we look at it as this ever-changing, ever-morphing, ever-moving combination of elements, it gives us this sense of, at first I think it gives us a sense of instability. That it's like, oh my gosh, everything is in motion and nothing, I can't hold on to anything. Nothing is going to stay the same, because when we look at the good things in our life, we think, well, we don't want those things to change. We want those to stay just as they are because they're so nice. And it's funny that our human tendency is to look at things that are good and say, I don't ever want those to change. And we look at the bad things and say, they never change. When something's bad, it just stays bad forever. Or I'm afraid it'll stay bad. But in actuality, what we consider to be bad is also changing. And so it's as fleeting as something that's good. So we can rest in that idea that if we simply allow things their natural state of change, that before we know it, what we don't like will be gone. It'll just not be there anymore. All of the elements, the causes and conditions is a great saying out of Buddhism. The causes that make something happen and the conditions, the thing that it happens within, the causes and conditions change, so therefore the thing no longer is the same at any given moment. It also gives us, if we realize this, it also gives us a sense of preciousness of time, that the things that we want, the things that are good, that we have to pay attention to because they're changing. And so we have to enjoy them while they're there, or else we'll turn around and they'll be gone. So it gives us a sense of urgency, not to grasp, because that doesn't get you anywhere. Grasping is trying to hold on to something and not let it change. But with a sense of urgency, we can make sure that we are fully present to absorb and to enjoy those things that we do like. It's all, that's sort of the basis of what in Buddhism when we talk about mindfulness. Mindfulness is being aware and present to experience what's happening in the moment, and to learn how to stop not noticing. Because I think that happens a lot. We're not fully present when something good is happening. We still have all those things going on in our minds. We're all, when something's good, there's also sort of a scenario playing in the back of our mind that we kind of know it's not going to last. And so we start worrying about, well, when is this going to go away, or is it too good to be true, or am I really seeing things the way they are? What if what I'm seeing isn't really true? I think it's good, but maybe it's not. Our minds are so busy and so capable and so imaginative that we can imagine ourselves right out of feeling good about a good thing. And all we need to do to stop that kind of thought process is to notice that it happens. Notice the stories we tell ourselves. I tell people this all the time when I teach meditation and in these kind of talks. It's the art or the ability to notice what's going on inside of yourself allows you the choice to decide whether you want to do it. But if you don't notice it, you can't change it. And it goes back to something that I teach in a meditation class about the difference in the different ways our minds think.